Today we're going to start talking about the staff. Now the staff is actually complicated enough that I'm going to break this up into several sections. Today we're going to be focusing on how to create a pattern that you can use to take the prop from reference picture to something that you're going to build in reality. The first step when I'm building a prop is I collect as many reference pictures as possible. And I do this for a couple reasons. One, and this is especially important for video game characters, the source material may not have enough detail in it. For example, the in-game renderings of Lulu, you get a general sense of her size and shape and what it looks like from kind of a 360-degree view. What you don't get are all the details for exactly what the topper on the staff looks like, or details that might appear on the bottom of the staff, or exactly how the different pieces of the staff connect. So I grabbed some pictures of the in-game rendering, and then I said, well, in order to figure out what kind of detail I should put into the staff, I grabbed the background picture that they show during picks and bans, and then I also grabbed some screenshots from the promotional video that Riot Games released when they released the Star Guardian skin set back in, I think it was around September, October timeframe. And that, between the two of them, even though there were some discrepancies, I was able to figure out which details I liked, which details I didn't like. However, the ones that we're focusing on mostly for today are the in-game renderings, because those are the ones that give you the best sense of proportion in terms of the size and shape of the staff as it relates to Lulu herself. One of the tricky parts about props is that they are often way too big or way impractical if you actually tried to implement them to scale. For example, Lulu's staff is actually bigger than her. I knew that I didn't want to carry around a staff that was actually going to be, 5.5 feet tall. I wanted mine to be somewhere around the maybe 4.5 feet mark. For reference, my staff ends up hitting me at around chest height, which means that I can pose with it easily, I can carry it around, it'll fit in my car, and I don't really have to worry about it being too messy or unwieldy, especially if I'm going into an expo hall, or a dealer's room or an artist's alley, regardless of the type of convention I'm going to. So once I got the reference pictures, I was able to figure out, okay, I don't want to actually make it the full size that Lulu's is, but the next step is to figure out, okay, well, I've got this picture of the staff from end to end, and I've got a couple good views of it. I need to figure out how to take that and resize it to be the size that I want it to be, which was around 4.5 feet tall. The way that I actually do this is I pick a reference picture that clearly shows the prop, both in terms of end to end and also the important other elements such as width or depth, depending on what the prop is. Now in this case, I picked a reference picture where Lulu is holding up the staff. You can clearly see the whole staff from end to end, and you also get a nice side view of the topper so that I can see that in relation to the length of the staff. I printed out that picture, and then I actually took a ruler and a pen and I just started measuring out what the lengths were on the staff. And there were a couple key measurements I wanted to take. One was obviously from end to end. Another one was kind of the width of the overall heart on the topper, the width including the little blue pieces, but I also measured kind of the heart topper, the mid piece that was connecting the topper to the rest of the staff. I also made a note of how long the tapering on the staff was, because Lulu's staff actually has a little bit of tapering at either end, so I wanted to make sure that I had that proportional as well. And then I also wanted to measure approximately how big the end piece was in relation to the rest of the staff. Once I had those measurements, I then took the overall length of the staff, and then I figured out the ratio between that length on the paper, which was around 6.5 centimeters, to 4.5 feet, which is what I wanted the staff to end up being in size. You can do that basic computation, there's a little bit of algebra involved in there, but basically you can figure out what is the multiplier between the reference size in the picture versus what it has to be in real life. Once you know that multiplier, you can take the reference picture, blow it up either in MS Paint or Photoshop, whatever kind of image manipulator you have available on your computer. You can resize it to be 200%, 300%, whatever size that you need it to be. You basically blow it up so that the number of inches on the image matches the number of inches you want it to be in real life. Then you have to actually print the picture. I think Adobe Photoshop may cover this, but I use Corel Paint Shop, which doesn't have the ability to print over multiple images or multiple sheets of paper. So usually what I do is I take my picture and I actually drop it into Microsoft Paint, because if you go into printer settings, there's actually a way for you to say print at actual size, and then you can specify print over multiple pages. What ended up happening is Lulu staff printed over, I think it was 9 sheets of paper, and so once I had printed it out, I reassembled it and basically taped the pieces of paper together until I had a final image blown up of a real-life version of the staff on paper. Now, unfortunately, because I was using in-game rendering and because I had to blow it up a fair bit in order to get it to work, the image was grainy. So the next step is you take a Sharpie or you take, a very dark colored pen, and you basically mark around the edges of the design. And this is just to give you a finer sense of here's what is actually going on in this picture, because the edges are going to be fuzzy on the printout that you just made. Once I had that, I was able to hone in to various pieces of the staff. So for example, I looked explicitly at the topper, and then I created a paper pattern for the topper. I also had a paper version for the piece that connected the heart to the topper, and then I also had a little pattern, this is actually a printout from the original one, of the end piece as well. Once you have the full length and the full version of the staff, and once you've traced it over and kind of cleaned it up a bit onto various pieces of paper, then you're actually ready to start building the staff.